Welcome to the Tyler Werner Show, discussing all the latest in Philadelphia sports.
And April is here. Phillies baseball is here. Gabe Kapler, Phillies manager, is here. And as some would say, maybe million-dollar body, nickel brain, managing the Philadelphia Phillies in the opening series of the season. We'll talk about it. Sixers, Joel Embiid, out the rest of the regular season and may miss some time in the playoffs by the looks of it with the fractured orbital incident and concussion that he suffered. Can the Sixers still make some noise in the playoffs? I still think they can, with or without Embiid in the first round. And the Philadelphia Flyers, barring a collapse of epic proportions, looks like they have themselves a playoff spot, even though they're going to be one of the lower seeds. Can they make some noise in the playoffs?
And now, here's Tyler Werner.
Oh God, ease our suffering in this our moment of great despair.
Welcome all to the Tyler Werner Show on this early April edition. Here it is, baseball season. Officially here as we kicked off Phillies season with an interesting series, I guess to say the least, with the Atlanta Braves getting 2 games out of the 3 against the Philadelphia Phillies. And this Phillies fan base is calling for manager Gabe Kapler's head for him to be fired. And it's easy to understand why. I mean, really, really stumbling out of the gate as manager here of the Philadelphia Phillies. The Chip Kelly comparisons have been made by many of the fans as well as myself.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. And it's easy to see the obvious pulling of Aaron Nola after, only 68 pitches in that first game against the Atlanta. But, the whole mentality, the whole idea comes to mind. If it ain't broke, why try and fix it? I mean, he still had a good 20 or so pitches we probably could have gotten out of him. And then just the sheer, you had the revolving door then of relief guys afterwards that really dropped the ball. But just afterwards in the press game conference, where Gabe Kapler says, look, I know the decisions didn't work tonight. Like, he didn't even own it. The way he said it, he didn't say my decisions. He said the decisions didn't work in our favor tonight, but I'm confident that going forward they will. What? That's malpractice. What he did, first of all, pulling Aaron Nola that early, when you really don't need to at that point, and he gave up 1 hit the whole 5 innings he was out there. But just the fact that that sounded like just like a stubborn thing to say. That sounded Chip Kelly-esque.
Was that like a wise-ass comment?
And it just, it just harkens back to when the whole running back rotation thing, when that wouldn't make sense, when, DeMarco Murray was getting 2 carries one game when he's supposed to be your lead back, and, just all kinds of stuff like that. Or when a guy's really getting moving on, then you pull him out, and then the other running back you throw in fumbles the football first time he's out, maybe because he's ice cold. I don't know. But we're well over Chip Kelly at this point. Because, of course, our Super Bowl champion winning head coach, Doug Peterson.
I just felt comfortable, confident and comfortable
in this Philadelphia Eagles regime and how they were able to turn it around. And look, that's what I want to hit hard here. Right off the bat here. Now with Chip Kelly, it wasn't necessarily the case where, first game for that matter. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles, they did start 1-3 that season, but they ended up 10-6. But here in the beginning, all right, there can be a fork in the road here. Gabe Kapler relying on this analytics nonsense. I mean, look, I don't want to call it nonsense. There's a time and place for analytics. But this is a situation, trust your eyes with Aaron Nola. And if you want to argue analytics, well, if you want to argue numbers, well, come on. 68 pitches, it's not, again, you get another 20 or so out of them. I know opening day, the number was, none of the winning pitchers threw over 100 pitchers that day or whatever. You still had plenty to go with Aaron Nola. If you want to argue, you want to throw that argument out. Again, trust your eyes. Phillies did, in extra innings, couple extra innings, take the second game last Friday night against the Atlanta Braves, fortunately 5-4, which was important because that narrow win kept them from starting out 0-3 in the hole as Saturday, and a slop fest that was, where the Phillies get destroyed 15-2.
Oh God, ease our suffering in this our moment of great despair.
And of course, the MLB is, I guess, formally gonna warn the Phillies over that pitching change that was made, where you want to bring a guy out who hasn't even really hasn't even have a chance to warm up. The MLB, yes. This is just recently off of NBCSports.com. He messed up Saturday for sure, attempting to bring in lefty reliever Hobie Milner, even though Milner was literally just starting to get warmed up. Kapler stalled, and Milner got a few warm-up pitches in before entering the game. Of course, crew chief Jerry Lane allowed Milner 5 warm-up pitches on the mound, and manager of the Braves, Brian Snitker, ended up getting ejected upon the little argument there. Though MLB.com's Todd Zalecki did report on Sunday that they will officially warn the MLB will officially warn the Phillies regarding that pitching change. And the MLB believes that Lane handled the situation appropriately. And then eventually Kapler took full responsibility for the communication breakdown, if you will.
You're a disgrace to this sport!
I'll tell you what. Again, here we go. Right out of the gate, Gabe Kapler's manager has really, really stumbled. But didn't we kind of look at Doug Peterson with the Philadelphia Eagles the same way? Like, this guy, he didn't know what he was doing, going for it on this fourth down when he shouldn't be, and not running the football, and yada, yada, and what have you. Doug was able to turn the corner. And it certainly helped that Doug was, well, what am I saying was? Is a player's coach. And at this juncture, after the Philadelphia Eagles win Super Bowl 52, it sure as hell looks like he knows what he's doing.
Gosh, it went great.
So, from what looked like bust to boom. Can Gabe Kapler turn the corner and avoid that Chip Kelly route continuing to go down there? Well, it's just look at the body language in the first few games watching the Phillies team. Because already that Aaron Nola move, that whole thing, that Gabe Kapler is going to overthink things. He's going to let analytics maybe get in the way of trusting his eyes. And adapting to the flow of a baseball game. I mean, right off the bat, that has to have the players, the Phillies baseball team, kind of in a just not in the best of mental situations about their manager. Of course, today, Phillies Mets postponed. Well, they didn't postpone the game. Their game was postponed. I mean, what? I mean, come on. April 2nd now. And we had a little bit of overnight snow last night.
What the hell?
Yeah, you're telling me, Nick Foles. I mean, look, I didn't mind a couple of the snow days we had in March. But now it's April now. Come on. It's baseball season. It's time to maybe get out there on the golf course a little more so, and maybe get out on the kayak. I don't know. But nevertheless, a little bit of overnight snow and what have you. And the Phillies-Mets game that was scheduled was postponed, so they're going to have a 2-game series, Tuesday and Wednesday, before the Phillies bring it home. 3-game series with the Miami Marlins. Hopefully they can, maybe turn the corner a little bit here. Gabe Kapler maybe turn the corner a little bit here as we move through baseball season. One that is supposed to be, giving us a little more promise with the personnel on this Phillies team that is, supposed to be growing. With the addition of Carlos Santana and Jake Arrieta in the mix, along with other guys, Rhys Hoskins on the uptick. Young guys. This is a young Phillies team. Youngest average age in the whole league. But right out of the gate, it's kind of been thwarted a little bit and hampered by Gabe Kapler, manager. Or some might say so far, mismanager of the Philadelphia Phillies. But again, look, I'm not gonna be like fire Kapler now. I'm not gonna, because again, there's time. Hopefully, he can turn the corner a little bit and rely less on equations and number crunching and what have you, and trust your eyes a little bit. Sixers basketball. Oh, yes. We're knocking on the door of the playoffs. And last week, again, Joel Embiid goes down. Broken orbital, concussion. And here we go again with doom and gloom here in Philadelphia sports.
Oh God, ease our suffering in this our moment of great despair.
However, with the Sixers, I'm a little more, despite Joel Embiid going down, I'm a little more optimistic. That's right. When Joel Embiid went down, I looked at 8 games. I saw 8 games on the schedule, and I thought, you know what? 2 of these last 8 games are against teams above 500. Sixers right now, they sit in 4th place in the Eastern Conference. Now, the last couple of games without Joel Embiid, they've been just fine. And against the Hornets, they didn't have Saric. They did just fine. And Saric, again, was really stepped it up early in that game when Joel Embiid went down. But, Ben Simmons shooting the ball a little more against the Hornets. 20 points, 15 assists, 8 rebounds. Incredible. Dishing off to Bellinelli and J.J. Redick. Robert Covington getting in there for some points. Ilyasova. So they made up for it against the Hornets. The Hawks, they did just fine. They had that game in the bag coming down the stretch and, letting off the gas pedal in the fourth quarter, but getting the win. So now, going down the rest of the Sixers' schedule, they host the Brooklyn Nets Tuesday night. They should win that game. They're at the Pistons Wednesday. Maybe a little tougher than the Brooklyn Nets, but they should be able to win that game as well. The Pistons, they can't, at this point, I mean, what do they really have left? They gotta pray for a miracle to make the playoffs, really, at this point. Sixers, they should win that game. Big one, Friday, when they host the Cleveland Cavaliers. That is going to tell a lot, because the Sixers remain a half game behind the Cavaliers. Sixers have won 10 in a row. The Cavaliers have been keeping pace at 8-2. They have one game in hand. Or in other words, the Sixers have 6 more games to go. The Cavaliers have 5 games to go. As of this April 2nd. Now, Sixers win that game against the Cavaliers. Whew, that's a big one. It really is. And, not to mention, next on the Cavaliers' schedule, Tuesday night, the Toronto Raptors are coming to town against Cleveland. That's a big game. The Cavaliers lose that one. Sixers really have a good, as long as Sixers take care of business against the Pistons, Sixers are in good position. And then they take on the Cavaliers Friday night. Huge game. And at that point, Sixers win that one. Sixers are essentially leapfrog ahead of the Cavaliers. But we can't count the Pacers out, because the Pacers are a half game behind the Sixers. Now, they got a couple tough games coming up. They host the Warriors on Thursday. They're on the road against the Raptors Friday. The Nuggets, they're desperate, fighting for a playoff spot. That could be a tough game for them coming up next, actually. So it's not all sunshine and rainbows for them down the stretch either. But again, the Sixers, getting back to their schedule, okay, they got the Cavaliers. They could afford a loss there and still maybe get the 3rd seed. Following that, they host the Mavericks. They should be able to win that at home. And then on the road against the Atlanta Hawks again, easily win that once again against this Hawks team that is Drek. And then to close out the regular season, they host the Milwaukee Bucks, 8th seed as of now in the playoffs, and likely to finish either 7th or 8th, barring how the Heat finish. They're tied with the Heat right now, 7th, 8th. So I look at the landscape here, and I still feel fairly optimistic that this Sixers team is going to finish 3rd or 4th. Maybe they finish 5th. But, okay, Joel Embiid, can still... he might miss time in that first series. Very well would miss some time, probably. 2 to 4 weeks was the timetable. Then there's the whole idea, does he come back with a mask? And I think that would be pretty cool.
Oh, man.
Just imagine Joel Embiid coming out with a mask. Home playoff game at the Wells Fargo Center. That would be awesome. Now, if Joel Embiid is able to make a return in time for maybe the second series of the playoffs, and the Sixers maybe at third position, maybe going against the Boston Celtics, could they maybe pull off a win in a 7-game series against the Boston Celtics? Now, I'm not going to go as far to say as they're going to the NBA championship if they win that first series without Joel Embiid or whatever. I'm not going there. It's time to give it up to the Toronto Raptors. They're a pretty solid team. They're in that upper echelon with the Celtics, and the Cavaliers, they're not quite there. And neither are the Sixers yet at this juncture. So the Raptors, they're kind of in their own echelon right now in the East. So I'm not going to go as far to say the Sixers would be able to do that. But there's something to be said for this Sixers team maybe making some noise in the playoffs. Which, again, I didn't initially think they might, given, I was maybe looking at a 6th seed. But they've won 10 in a row. That's not to be, sold short here. Because in the past, earlier in the season, this is a Sixers game that, in that 10-game span, they would have lost a couple of them against perhaps inferior teams or teams that are close to their level. In the past in the season, they would have lost a few of those. They would have lost 2 or maybe 3 of those games. But, hey, what do we have to do?
Trust the process.
It's coming along. Even though Joel Embiid's sitting out right now, unfortunately, ironically enough, upon colliding with Markelle Fultz's shoulder in just Fultz's second game back. In spite of that, Sixers are in good position. And all this, fire Brick Brown nonsense when they lose a game or two. Where's that now? This is without Joel Embiid. Let's see what they can do. The Philadelphia Flyers, we got to take a look at them on the other side because we got to hit our first break here. It's crunch time for the Flyers, too. Just a few games left. A big win on Easter Sunday. How about that? Against the Boston Bruins in overtime. Number 1 team in the Eastern Conference right now. How about that? Captain Claude Giroux coming in clutch. 2 goals in that game on Easter Sunday. We'll talk about it and more right here on the Tyler Werner Show. Stay tuned for more after this.
The champion of game day catering is the official meatball of the Tyler Werner Show, Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs.
We prepare our balls over time, and that's the essence of the preparation.
On top of that, another trademark of Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs is Brady's signature rubbing process.
When I pick balls out, to me, they're perfect. I don't want anyone touching the balls after that. I don't want anyone rubbing them. To me, those balls are perfect.
What is a concern is the texture of the balls, and again, that's the point that Tom hit on hard.
The champion of all game day catering dishes is Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs, the official meatball of the Tyler Werner Show.
Number one box office attraction, number one WWE superstar, multi-time WWE champion, Brock Lesnar.
Time to revamp your office space, eh? Looking for an interior decorator? Look no further than Brock Lesnar.
Now that's the way a real man uses a sledgehammer.
Out with the old, in with the new. Give Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman a call.
Mr. Lesnar, you're the future of interior decorator. I think we're done.
And we're back on the Tyler Werner Show, discussing all things Philadelphia sports this week as Phillies baseball season opened up. And the ever-talkable Gabe Kapler management situation thus far with the Phillies. Flyers and the Sixers both making runs for the playoffs this year. So we were just talking about with the Sixers. And I'm not ready to close the book on the Sixers just yet in the first round of the playoffs. Going down the remainder of the regular season here, I think it'll help without question if they can get that third seed. As, likely we're looking at them facing an inferior Wizards team. I think even without Joel Embiid out there in a 7-game series, I think the Sixers against the Wizards, yeah. Or if somehow, the Heat, the Bucks, one of those teams slipped in the 6th spot, I got to think the Sixers at this juncture, even without Joel Embiid for the first round, would be able to take care of business. Whether Joel Embiid would be out there in the second round, that might be a different story when, you got to take on a better Boston Celtics team or whoever. Potentially the Toronto Raptors, depending where you finish and where the other teams end up. As for the Philadelphia Flyers, again, a big win at the Wells Fargo Center against the Boston Bruins, all picking up 2 points. Flyers picking up points where they need to here and there. A couple overtime losses earlier last week, but since putting a couple wins together, so that has helped them. Certainly, they take on the Islanders Tuesday night on the road. They host the Carolina Hurricanes Thursday. And then they finish off hosting the New York Rangers in the final game of the regular season. All teams below them. And essentially out of the playoff mix at this point. The Hurricanes, Rangers, Islanders, all bottom feeders of the Metropolitan Division. So, hey, Flyers could reach 100 points on the nose if they pick up those wins, take care of business. And Claude Giroux, ladies and gentlemen, is within striking distance of getting 100 points on this season. Something he hasn't really sniffed doing the last few years. Claude Giroux, gotta hand it to him. He has put together quite an impressive campaign. This past season compared to recent years, where it looked like maybe he was finished or he'd just be too banged up overall. But Claude Giroux, 2 goals the other night, in his 2 shots on goals on the goal. I mean, good stuff. Good stuff out of him. Overtime winner against the Bruins. So looking at the point totals right now, again, Flyers, easy chance to finish off with 3 wins. Whether they do or not remains to be seen. They're tied in 3rd place right now with the Columbus Blue Jackets in the division. So they kind of sit at 4th, though. The Devils, right behind at 93 points, 79 games played just like the Flyers. So they're right behind there. They're right behind the Philadelphia Flyers as of now. Capitals sit at 101 points. For all intents and purposes, they have the division locked up. The Penguins, this is where things are a little interesting. They have 96 points. However, they've played 80 games. Now, remaining on their schedule, let's take a look here. At the Blue Jackets, Thursday. And then the Senators visit the Penguins Friday. So, there you go. You got a game with the Blue Jackets where either way, one of those teams right there with the Flyers, either way, one of those teams loses the game, hopefully in regulation, and that would benefit the Flyers. To leapfrog over maybe the Blue Jackets or maybe the Penguins. The Senators are pretty much shot, so you can pretty much guarantee the Penguins should win that other game. The Blue Jackets, let's look at their schedule. They host the Red Wings Tuesday night. They should win that. And then again, you got that toss-up game with the Penguins. And then Saturday at the Nashville Predators, number 1 team in all of hockey at 113 points. How about that? But of course, their head coach, I guess, wasn't good enough for Peter Laviolette. He wasn't good enough here, was he? After 3 games that season, they had to fire him. Well,
You're a disgrace to this sport.
But another impressive campaign the Predators are putting together this year. So I look at this, they could, if all plays out the way we'd like it to, the Flyers take care of business these last 3 games. Blue Jackets lose that one to the Nashville Predators last game of the season. And then the Penguins maybe lose to the Blue Jackets. And the Flyers they have a chance to leapfrog both of those teams and be second in the Metropolitan Division. Whether that happens, though, remains to be seen. But regardless, the Flyers, again, barring that the Panthers with 5 games left, say if Panthers win all of their remaining games, finish with 96 points, and the Flyers fail to, I guess, gain 2 more points the rest of the season, barring that, something like that happens, the Flyers are in the playoffs. And that's a good with this younger core that's starting to emerge a little bit on this Flyers team. Nolan Patrick. And you still got some stalwarts like Claude Giroux. Again, Claude Giroux, I tip my cap to him. He's had a great season. And again, you got this revolving door at goaltender. Michael Neuvirth just seems like he just can't stay healthy this year. All things considered, Flyers faring pretty well, and we'll see where they finish in the playoffs. But I can't see the Flyers getting to the Eastern Conference Finals or anything like that. But as they say, the NHL playoffs, sometimes in a way they're wide open. But at the end of the day, few teams that in a 7-game series probably superior to the Flyers. That either way, the Flyers would have to, even if they win the first round, they'd have to stumble into somebody tough that second round that they probably would not fare as well against. But that's just me. That's just what I see for now. Haven't even touched on Eagles football yet. That's quite unusual.
What's the matter with you?
Well, nothing really. It's just free agency has pretty much come and gone. I don't think I didn't really get a chance to address. Well, I mean, I guess if I wanted, but with the busy Easter week last week and not having the Tyler Werner Show, I didn't. All the stuff that came out with Michael Bennett and that situation and how quickly it just seems to, I don't know, it seems to have kind of subsided. And look, regardless of what people want to say about, why is an elderly paraplegic person working security at a football stadium or whatever, that's not the point. The way the evidence, or somewhat lack thereof of evidence, has shaken out, if anything, it looks like this might get knocked down to a misdemeanor with Michael Bennett. And it doesn't seem to me like there's truly enough there that, Michael Bennett's going to get the full... would get the full punishment that he was supposed to get, or that he was getting charged for. And how this all comes out over a year later, I understand. Maybe they had more they had murder cases to sort through first, or whatever. I don't know. I just gotta think. In this day and age, like, there would have been some kind of video footage that would have maybe have shed more light on this sooner. I don't know. Am I crazy to think that? I don't know. But it's just ironic how it's like, it comes out shortly after the Eagles sign him here, but that's just me. And of course, Mike Wallace. That was a signing that took place shortly, I guess, after the last edition of the Tyler Werner Show. I like the signing. I'm thinking, well, first of all, better than Torrey Smith, I would say, at that receiving position. I think they're a little better with Mike Wallace there. But I did think they would go young in the draft, maybe eye up a young burner wide receiver. But at this juncture, again, if you got Mike Wallace there, you got Alshon Jeffrey, you got Nelson Aguilar, who's come along, Mac Hollins, maybe we'll see a little more of him, what he's capable of this season. They're pretty well set for now. So that's all well and dandy. If they want to, again, take another flyer on a relatively older free agent receiver, or relatively older free agent in general, since that was also kind of the theme with the defensive line with Haloti Ngata and Michael Bennett signing here. Go with it. And amongst other key accomplishments, getting Nigel Bradham back here, the linebacking core. Chris Long's going to make a return this year, who's contemplating retirement. He'll be back in tow. So, overall, yeah, pretty good free agency period for the Philadelphia Eagles. Good stuff to see in Eagleville. All right, so that'll take us to the next break on this early April edition of the Tyler Werner Show. We're talking all things Philly sports this week as baseball season has started up. The regular season, Flyers hockey and Sixers basketball is in the next week or two coming to a close. And as far as Eagles football, again, now we're just kind of slowly working our way up to the draft, which isn't going to feature too many picks with the Philadelphia Eagles this year, given some obvious trades that have been made in recent years here in this regime. But at the end of the day, it's a team that is poised to perhaps go back and win another Super Bowl, dare I say. I just feel comfortable saying that.
I just felt comfortable, confident and comfortable.
We'll be back after this on the Tyler Werner Show.
I'll have some skirt steak, some brisket, little piece of that New York steak, a couple of them steak fingers, and a burger.
You've known for a long time that you were going to have to get real about fat or stay real fat. It didn't get that way by accident or by some outsider's doing.
Put some macaroni and cheese on there, too. Is there any chicken fried steak left?
Your weight just keeps creeping up or maybe even shooting sky high.
3 slices of pecan pie and 2 cups of coffee.
You have a decision to make. You know it, and so do I.
Yes, all right.
You need prescription diet pills or other diet aids to lose weight.
Attention parents, is your under 18-year-old daughter being cyberstalked by a man who identifies themselves as a grown adult male?
I want to meet you and fool around. Are you up to meeting tonight, hon? I think I would like to shower with you. We can do it in the shower, too.
If so, you need to contact Chris Hansen and Company to bust these online cyberstalkers.
How are you tonight? Why don't you have a seat there and get comfortable for that?
I guess you're going to tell me next that this is the very first time you've done something like this.
Chris Hansen and the Dateline crew will take care of it. Contact us, and we will put an end to the cyber stalking that your daughter is experiencing.
Well, there's something you got to know. I am Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC, and we're doing a story on computer predators.
Busted!
And we're back on this edition of the Tyler Werner Show. Kick things off in the month of April with Phillies baseball, 76ers basketball. We're getting into the playoffs, as well as Flyers hockey making its way into playoff time as well. Great to have both these Sixers and the Flyers in the playoffs this time around, as last year we didn't have either. And the Phillies were what they were. And the Eagles were coming off of a 7-9 season. And lo and behold, here we are a year later. Sixers heading to the playoffs. Flyers making a return to the playoffs. Year 3 of Dave Haxtell, head coach, and general manager Ron Hextall this newer regime. Sixers, it turns out, Dario Saric, who missed the game against the Hornets, it looks like he is going to miss another game with this bacterial infection in his elbow as he sat out Sunday's game against the Hornets with what Brett Brown said was a swollen bursa sac in his right elbow. So he's going to miss Tuesday night's game against the Brooklyn Nets at the Wells Fargo Center because he has cellulitis in the elbow. He's been receiving treatment. The team said he will be reevaluated on Tuesday, and the Sixers will determine whether he can play Wednesday in Detroit against the Pistons. So now they're going to be without not only Joel Embiid, but Dario Saric, and they did fare just fine against the Hornets the other night. Or should I say yesterday afternoon, Easter Sunday afternoon. I got to think they'll be fine against the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, if they fared fine against the Hornets, I think they should fare fine against the Brooklyn Nets. Hopefully they can have Saric back in the mix for Wednesday's matchup against the Pistons. It might be a little tougher, but certainly, hopefully in time for when the Sixers take on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Again, that is going to be the game. Really could tell a lot with this Sixers season, where they end up finishing. Without question, because, the Pacers are right there in the mix, as I was saying earlier, going through the standings. But half game behind the Cleveland Cavaliers, although they have played one extra game thus far on the schedule. I gotta think the Sixers, they can pull out that game. They'll easily win 50 games if they beat the Cavaliers. I mean, they got 6 to go. They go 4-2 down the stretch here. They'll get 50 wins. A very impressive feat for this team and for Coach Brett Brown, who I think, again, a lot of people have been a little unfair about.
It was a smorgasbord
when the team has come up short this season in some games. And again, this is a young Sixers team. Very young Sixers team. And at times there's more variables with these young players, whereas you go to a situation with the Phillies and just terrible malpractice decision making out of Gabe Kapler, Phillies manager, who I know has been getting grilled to a T this week following game 1 of the season, following that 15-2 blunder against the Atlanta Braves, where they bring in a relief guy who's not even warmed up, and then they have to give him 5 warm-up pitches on the mound or whatever, to the chagrin of the Atlanta Braves. Look, I know a lot of people, at the same time, rightfully so, they want to run Gabe Kapler out of town.
Hit him up! Move him out!
But at the same time, it's a long season. Let's see how things play out. Let's see if hopefully Gabe Kapler can adapt and not be stubborn, all right? Not be that Chip Kelly kind of stubborn, where eventually he'll find himself at the 49ers going 1-15, and he'll still think, no, I'm doing what needs to be done. I'm calling the right shots, and whatever. However, Chip Kelly carried himself. I just think the way Gabe Kapler, handle that kind of situation where, quote unquote, the decisions didn't go in our favor, but I'm confident they will in the future. You kind of sound silly, because the decisions like that, when they suck, it's like, well, why would you think that decisions that sucked and didn't go in your favor, why would you rely on decisions that suck in the future? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just one of those things. Maybe you handle it like, well, I'm gonna evaluate what we did here, and yada yada. Not this whole thing where, oh well, the decisions didn't go in our favor, but I'm confident that they will in the future. No. Pulling Aaron Nola that early when he's doing just fine. Well under 100 pitches still. Only 2/3 of the way there. Just about. And you're going to pull him. That ain't right. So we'll see how things play out. They got a series coming up. A brief 2-game series against the Mets. The other one was postponed due to the snow. The old S word that just doesn't seem to go away, even though we're in April now. I know it's not the first time we've had snow in April, but still, come on. It's past that now. I'm ready to get out on the beach, quite frankly. Even though the water right now is at this juncture, at least up here in the, I guess, I don't even want to call it the north, the Delaware Beach area, that kind of area. Because I know obviously down in Florida, it's a different story right now for those maybe who are taking a dip down in Florida or spending time. Of course, we had Phillies spring training baseball down in Clearwater, Florida, just the other week ago. So there you go. But anyhow, whether we're still getting snow or not, it is playoff time. Playoffs are just about on the horizon with the Philadelphia 76ers and the Philadelphia Flyers. And it's going to be exciting, no matter what. With or without Joel Embiid in that first series. This is one of these things where Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, these guys, 76ers, they got to rally around each other without Joel Embiid out there and figure out how to play without Joel Embiid in crunch time situations, in a playoff situation, given Embiid's probably not going to be back. And same with Dario Saric, at least for the next game. Although they should, again, fare just fine against the Brooklyn Nets. And hopefully against the Pistons if Saric misses that game as well. But this is really, I look at it as a situation heading into the first round of the playoffs, riding this 10-game winning streak, ladies and gentlemen, where this team, they got to rally around each other without Joel Embiid. And I think thus far, the first couple of games, even though it's been against inferior opponents nevertheless, they've done just fine. Ben Simmons has stepped his game up. The game where Embiid went down, Saric really stepped up. And that's why hopefully he can, make his return sooner rather than later. And again, like I said, that Cleveland Cavaliers and Sixers game is going to be a biggie. It's going to be like kind of a prelude to the playoffs. That kind of game. It's a big game. And it's really going to decide a lot. We'll know more around this time next week. And same with the Flyers, as by that point, the playoffs will be all set. Saturday, last game. It's crunch time for the Flyers. Let's see where they fall in the Metropolitan Division in the Eastern Conference playoffs for this year. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Tyler Werner Show. We're in the month of April now. And it's kind of a good feeling. We're hopefully moving into that warmer weather. Baseball season is here. Basketball, NHL playoffs are almost here. Later this month, the NFL draft will be here. And before you know it, that summery weather will be here. And I think that's something we're all looking forward to. After a winter that definitely featured a frequent amount of snowstorms, whether a lot of them were small or 1-inch ones, depending where you're from or not. They've been a little bigger as of late, but nevertheless, it's April. And we're moving, hopefully, out of winter.
I agree.
All right. Everyone, thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Tyler Werner Show. Facebook.com/Tyler Werner Show. Always welcome likes, appreciate likes, comments, discussions, thoughts on all things Philadelphia sports, but especially the here and the now with the Philadelphia Phillies, Gabe Kapler, the 76ers and the Flyers in their races towards the playoffs. And, of course, whatever is going on in Eagleville, if I could call it Eagleville. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll talk to you next time on The Tyler Werner Show.